Welcome to our regional Indian cookery course, this time featuring the cuisine of Rajasthan. And here we're going to make Laal Maas, which is a really traditional meat curry from Rajasthan. And the meat that we're using is lamb in this instance, but you could use venison, you could use goat, you could use mutton. Notice that we've got a shoulder cut here with a little bit of fat on it to give a nice flavour and texture to the curry. The other main ingredient here are the onions, and we're using a mixture of sliced onions and pureed onions, and we'll take you through how we use those in the cooking process during this course. Now to the all-important spices, all of which you will find in your cookery course kit. We start off with the first masala, where we have cumin seeds, some cloves, some black peppercorns, green and black cardamom. And these things are Indian bay leaves. They're actually leaves of the cassia cinnamon tree, often also called a cinnamon leaf. As we cook the curry, then we'll move to adding the soft spices, or the garlic and the ginger, and then our second masala, our ground spices, our turmeric, Kashmiri chili powder and some coriander powder, and we've broken up a couple of Kashmiri chilies there just to add a little bit of extra texture and heat at this stage in the cooking. And interestingly, this curry has a third masala which we call tempering, and we'll cook these spices in oil and then add them to the curry at the end. And we have some cracked coriander seeds. You can crack those with a pestle and mortar as we did, or using a very short blitz in a spice grinder, some cloves, and then some whole Kashmiri chilies which will puff up beautifully in the oil when we perform the tempering. Now, as is common in a lot of Rajasthani curries, the souring agent here is yogurt. So we're using a full fat Greek yogurt here. The reason that we suggest using a full, say 10% fat yogurt, is because it's more stable in the cooking, is less tendency to split. The oil that we'll use for the cooking here is, we've used a Scottish rapeseed oil. You can see the beautiful yellow colour. It's actually quite similar in aroma to mustard oil, which would be used in Rajasthan. You could use mustard oil. We choose to use rapeseed oil because it's a healthy alternative, and also we can source it locally. This being a Scottish rapeseed oil reduces our food miles, of course, and then some salt and some sugar to adjust the seasoning as we go through. So over to the stove. Okay, so we'll put our rapeseed oil into the pan and get that warmed through. And we'll add our bay leaves and our whole spices for our first masala. So those have, if you can see, those have started to sizzle. The point of this is basically to flavour our oil, and that's what will give the base flavour of our curry. Okay, so you can see that actually the cinnamon leaves are just starting to take on a little colour there now, as are the cardamom. So I'm going to add our onions, our sliced onions first. And now we just need to fry those through until we've got them nice and brown. So as you can see, our onions are taking on some colour now, largely at this stage colour from the lovely rapeseed oil that we've used. So we've a wee while to go yet. We want these to be lovely and brown before we start the next stage. Okay, so our onions are getting nicely brown now, and this is now the point where we can add the next ingredient, which is going to be pureed onions. And you might wonder why we're adding the onions in two stages like this and in two different states. But the reason is that we want this curry to have a really nice coating sauce, and we get that from the combination of the pureed and the sliced onions. Now, so we're going to mix these in and get this whole mixture nice and brown. But there is another way that you could do this, and we show you that in one of our other recipes in this course, and that basically would be to slice all of the onions, cook them all until they're nice and brown, set the whole spices to one side. By that I mean the cinnamon leaf and the black cardamom. You probably don't need to worry too much about the others. And then just take a stick blender in the pan. Take the pan off the heat, and then use a stick blender just to blend down some of the onions. And that's another way of basically doing the same thing. But I thought it would be good to show you the two different techniques. Basically, what we're creating here is something called a fried onion paste, and that's the base for a lot of curries in the north of India. As I say, by doing it this way and using the pureed onions as well as the sliced onions, we get a really nice coating sauce for our meat. So that's looking good. It's looking nice and brown, and I think we can move to the next stage, which is to turn the heat down now, and we will add our garlic and ginger. There we go. So that's cooked through nicely, and our next step then will be to add our second masala, which is our powdered spices and the Kashmiri chili chunks. So we'll pop those in. There we go, and we'll get that mixed through, and now we're going to add a little bit of water to help us deglaze this pan. Now I'm using a stainless steel bottomed pan for this dish. I find that works really well with these meat curries. It can be a bit tricky if you're cooking with chicken though, because that can stick a bit to the bottom, so a non-stick pan is quite handy then. But for this type of dish with the meat, non-stick pan is great. So let's pop a little water in now. Serves two purposes. Deglazes the pan for us, and it stops the spices burning. And the name for this in Hindi is bhunoing. I love that word, bhunoing. So it's deglazing basically. Now, there we go. So we've got that mixed through nicely. And now what we just want to happen is the water to get driven off that, and you'll see that the mixture starts to shine as the fat comes to the oil comes to the surface. Okay, so you can see the oil has just started to sweat out of the mixture now, which is just what we want. So we're ready to add our meat. And if you're wondering, I don't have three arms. I'm not one of those Indian gods with multiple arms. I've got Lucy here who's kindly passing me all the ingredients as we go and turning the video on and off. Okay, remember we're not trying to cook the meat through here. We're just trying to get a bit of colour on it, seal it, and at the same time coating it with all these wonderful oily, spicy aromas and flavours and things. And as you can see, as I go, I'm kind of just gathering all the bits off the base of the pan so things don't stick and burn. Okay, and then to help that caramelisation process along, what we do is add a little bit of sugar. I might get Lucy just to pop that in for me. Thank you. And you'll just let that just continue to cook, and then a little bit of salt. So you can see we've already got a nice sticky mixture here, but of course this needs to cook for some time for the meat to cook through, so it will need more moisture, and that's coming in two ways. In the first instance we're going to add some yogurt, and I think we're probably about there. So as you can see, it's not cooked through by any means. What we've just done is allow the meat to seal a little bit and to take on flavours of the sauce. There we go, so that's looking good now. So we're going to turn the heat down again, and we're going to add our yoghurt. So this is our full fat Greek yoghurt. You can get this from most supermarkets nowadays. You could cook it with the low fat stuff, but you might find that you get a runnier sauce and the yoghurt has more of a tendency to split. There we go. We're just going to let that warm through, and then we're going to add some water to our mixture, and then we're going to pop it in the oven for an hour to cook through. Okay, so that's heated through nicely with the yoghurt, so we're going to add our water. We're going to add this in gradually just so we can blend it through the yoghurt. There we go, and that gives us enough moisture there in our curry for it to cook. Now we're going to put it in a fan oven on 160 for an hour. You could actually cook this on the top. Of course, you risk it sticking to the bottom, so you've got to keep more of an eye on it. But anyway, find about an hour will cook through that lamb quite nicely. Probably a bit longer if you're using venison or mutton or goat. So let's pop the lid on, and we're going to pop that in the oven. Okay, so here's our Laal Maas. It's been in the oven for just over an hour. We've got a nice coating sauce. Check that the lamb is done. So the next thing to do is to do our final step, which is the tempering. You can see we have our small pan here, which has 2 tablespoons of rapeseed oil. We're going to use that to do the tempering. So here are our tempering spices. I'm going to pop the cracked coriander seeds and the cloves in first into the oil. There we go. And then just as they start to sizzle, we'll put the Kashmiri chilies in. It's important, really important, not for the Kashmiri chilies not to burn, otherwise you'll lose all the wonderful flavour that they're going to give the dish. This is just bubbling away nicely. Actually, while that's heating up, what we could do, because we don't eat these, we'll fish out our Indian bay leaf or cinnamon leaf. We've got 2 in here, and we'll also fish out our black cardamom, because they're not too nice to eat on their own, although they give a wonderful smoky flavour to our dish. So this is sort of a bit of a fishing expedition. There we go, there's our second black cardamom, and hiding in here somewhere is another bay leaf. There it is, Indian bay leaf or cinnamon leaf. So that's done. These are sizzling away nicely. We'll pop our Kashmiri chilies in. And you can see they're starting to pop up. Turn that chap over. There we go. And this just gives us a final flavour to finish our curry. And at this point I'm going to turn the Laal Maas out. Those look good. They've puffed up nicely. And pop that into the curry. There we go. And that is everything. So the very last step, as always, is just to give things a taste. See if we need to adjust the salt or the sugar. And I think we just need half a teaspoon of salt in there, and that should finish that off perfectly. There we go. So there you have Rajasthani red meat curry or Laal Maas.